Friedman, founder and president of SOF Missions. This December marks the 10-year anniversary of our organization. And through your support and some incredible people, we have been able to serve tens of thousands of people over the past 10 years. Did you hear that? Tens of thousands. And it's been an amazing journey so far, and I cannot wait to see what the next 10 years holds. SOF Missions has been combating the suicide epidemic by providing restorative whole health care to veterans and military service members. And what we do is we put them on a path to peak performance. The treatment model of our program, the Resiliency Project, takes an interdisciplinary approach and addresses the areas of psychological, physical, and social and spiritual wellness. Veterans in our program receive up to 365 days of care at no cost. And this is made possible by our generous donors, just like you. Now tonight, I want to share with you a story of just one of those veterans your donations has impacted. John Fischetti, a dear friend of mine and also known as Fish. And I'll tell you what, he has one of the most amazing testimonies. His story is going to blow your mind. He's an elite Special Forces operator, a Green Beret, numerous deployments to a combat zone, dealing with some of the most horrific of times, shot multiple times, and went through some of the most darkest of times. And yet, through it all, finds hope. A hope many combat veterans are in dire need of, but honestly, a hope many of us are looking for. Take a look.
My name is John Fischetti. I am from Fort Bragg, North Carolina. I was born there. Went to high school in Florida after my father retired. Come from a military family. My grandfather was airborne in World War II. My dad was airborne, worked in SOF and all that. I worked in SOF, and both my sons are actually in SOF as well right now. So it is the family business. I joined the military, been in 25 years, and joined the military because, well, I was homeless and I didn't have anywhere. I was living on the streets and I needed somewhere to go. And when you find yourself at the lowest part, you start reaching out for anything that could help you. And being from a military family, I knew that the military could help me. I tried to go to college, didn't work out, didn't have the money to go back home, and that's where I found myself. And joined the military. I walked in there and the Army recruiter took care of me. He put me in, gave me a place to stay for 3 days while I went through all the necessary stuff to get in. I came in at the bottom of the military, the lowest you can get, 11 X-ray. Didn't even know what infantry I was going to be, just some type of infantry. And I worked my way all the way up through the ranks, all the way up to being, a Special Forces operator. And it's been a hard road, but I owe a lot to the military. I asked my recruiter 3 simple things. Can you pay me a little bit of money, give me something to eat, and give me somewhere to sleep? And I'm the only one that can say the recruiter never lied about what he can give me. So my thing is that I love the military and I love what they can do for the world, but it really does take a special individual to be able to do it as long as most people can. But the ones that have served, I will never ever shy away from a veteran who needs something or whatever, because their dedication to serving others is paramount. It's so important.
This is 1 Romeo, Roger, stand by. Hey, 5, I want you to get a radio check with 5 Delta. Actual said that we have to stop.
My path as a soldier and some of the challenges that I ran into during my career, I have quite a few at over 25 years. But I will say that when I started out as infantry, I was basically just doing what they tell me to do, typical soldier stuff. However, when I got to my unit, I had really good leadership that really pushed me. And as an E3, I had already accomplished getting multiple schools. That's actually when I went to Ranger School, was able to complete Ranger School, and then that set me up to be the leader I am today. As I moved up through the ranks, I made E7 very quickly. Within 7 years, I was already a platoon sergeant and the infantry. Then September 11th happened. And when September 11th happened, it kind of changed the dynamics of the military. And everyone wanted to go over there. Everyone wanted to protect the country. I chose to switch over to Special Forces at that time. I went through the qualification course. As I came out as a brand new operator, went to my team. We immediately ramped up, thought we were gonna go, but we wound up going to South America first, which was great because it allowed us to build as a team. And then after that, it was like a nonstop rotation over to Afghanistan, to the point where, I jokingly say that I got timeshare over there because I've been over there so many times. The experience I had over there was the complete gambit that you could imagine. The positives, the negatives, the terrifying, the happy. Every experience you can imagine, I believe, happened to me over there. I went from setting up schools, setting up government programs, to having the most terrifying nights of your life. So as I grew in the ranks as an operator, moving into leadership, I chose that I wanted to make sure that I took care of the men and women underneath me and to share my experiences with them. A lot of leaders fail to remember that they're human too, and that when their soldiers or service members are struggling, it's important to let them know that you struggle too. And then that brings me to where I am today. I have made a very successful career out of the military, and I've had a lot of hardships, but I believe I'm still standing for a reason. And I owe a lot of that to my family, my friends, and of course, more importantly, God. It was early on in the war. The equipment we had and the resources we had just weren't to where they were closer to the end. So we were out there pretty much, I guess, jokingly alone and afraid. 12-man ODA is usually what an SF team travels as. You'll have usually a JTAC attached to you and maybe an EOD guy if you're lucky at that time. It was 13 people going into that valley. We had been in some small firefights here or there. Everyone gets in these little firefights. But you're looking at 13 individuals driving in on 4 trucks. We had Afghans with us that were the Afghan National Army, and they had 2 Ranger pickup trucks, and there was only 10 of them. And we would drive into these valleys, and we would try to go and find the Taliban using intel and resources and stuff to try to find them, to weed them out of these areas so that the people didn't have to live under their tyranny. As we moved into this valley, this story in particular, it was a very tight, constricted valley. And as we moved into it, everything was fine. Women, children, everybody were outside. They were welcoming us. They wanted us to come into the area. They were coming up to the vehicles, talking with us and stuff like that. And interpreters were talking with them, letting them know why we were there and stuff. But then when we got to the end of the valley and turned around and came back, we noticed that all the women and children were walking out of the valley. They were leaving. They were going up into the mountains. We could see this from our spotting scopes and binoculars and stuff. So we knew that something was about to happen. And that was my first experience of loss, my first experience of terror. And still to this day, I can't stop thinking about it. As we moved down to head back home, we were just a mere 3,000 meters away from there, which is not that far at all. As we moved down into the first choke point or tight area, that's when the ambush happened. We were attacked by over 3,000 fighters. Bear in mind, I just told you that we're only 13 people with 4 vehicles, with an additional 10 Afghan fighters who are barely trained to fight. We're still working with them. Immediately as the firefight happened, the 2 Ranger pickup trucks took off. They started heading right back to the camp. We would have done the same to break contact, but we started taking casualties immediately because all the fire was focused on our 4 vehicles. Our captain was shot. Our leadership was taken out immediately. The volume of fire was just intense. We wound up, within that 45 minutes of firefight, we wound up losing 9 team members. We had to drive the crippling vehicles back. Couldn't get air on station. Air wasn't as prevalent as it was closer to the end of the war. We had 1 medic on the team, and everybody was working on everybody else. Cross-training was key. I lost my junior that day, and I lived with the guilt because he was my responsibility. He was my junior. Every member of the team, there's a senior and a junior, and he was mine to protect, to raise him soft. And I felt for years that I failed him. And I had to come to terms with that. And I had to get forgiveness of myself and forgiveness from them, to forgive thy enemy, and basically accept that my friend died doing what he wanted to do, which was protecting the man to his left and right. As we pulled out of the valley, we went back, medevaced everybody that we could. Unfortunately, put the ones that we had to in the body bags and send them home. But for Special Forces, you don't have the luxury of going home and licking your wounds. Even though I was banged up and shot that day, they patched me up and we went back into that valley. And we kept going back in that valley until everybody that was bad in that valley was gone. We wound up working that valley for another 2 months of going in and out of there and taking more and more casualties. And they kept sending us replacement Green Berets and replacement soldiers. And we wound up losing quite a few Afghan military in there as well. And it's one of the experiences that I hold on to because I was so young and I didn't have any coping mechanisms. I had natural resiliency. That's what they chose me to be that job for. but your cup will overflow. Your cup can only handle so much. And back then, there just wasn't anything out there. That's actually where I am today as a older soldier. I wish I would have had some techniques and some resiliency back then. I would have been able to cope with those stresses and got back out on that line and been a better operator because I took the time to cope with it and to deal with it, process it, and then I could have moved on to the next one. But instead, we just box it up and kept moving forward. I believe it just was such a new experience. Nobody had the answer. But when I came back from that first trip, I didn't come back a traditional way. I had been shot a few times on that trip, but the last one, 2 weeks before everyone was coming home, I took a shot to the arm that was debilitating to the point where I could not fight anymore. So I was forced to be medevaced. I say forced because I didn't want to go. I wanted to stay with my friends because I didn't want them to go in the valley without me, but I had to go. And I live with that today. It still chokes me up thinking about that feeling I had that day when they put me on the plane to Germany. I went through surgery. I left out of Germany and I went home. And as I hit the ground, nobody was there to welcome me. Nobody called ahead. Nobody told my family I was coming. At the time, I had very small children, 2 boys. And my wife and 2 boys were gone at the time. They were visiting family down in Central Florida. And I got to the house, it was empty. Nobody was there. I got dropped off. I was medicated because of the pain, and I just laid on the couch in a dark, dark room because I was still there and I had nobody to call. The next day, my friend's wife, the friend that was medevaced 2 months prior, was there, sitting next to me, and his wife was getting me dressed, and I had no idea what was going on. And we wound up going to a friend of mine's, the one that died next to me the day I got medevaced, his memorial. And I remember sitting in that memorial in dress uniform with his family in front of us. And all they wanted to do was turn around and ask me what happened. And I was terrified that they were going to ask me, because I knew that I would tell them the truth. And I had no chaplains, no counselors, no anybody talking with me to see if I was okay. And when I walked in to the reception area where the family was, they asked. And I told them about what happened. And I told them about the mission we were on. And I told them that he died doing what he wanted to do, and that he was protecting us. My self-destructive path was a lot. I drank a lot. I started, my father was an alcoholic, and I saw the destructiveness in him, and I started seeing that in myself. So I pulled myself away from that. But then I started doing risky behavior stuff, adventurous style sports where people were like, oh, he's doing some adventurous stuff. But really I was looking for some way to just pull my mind out of what I was thinking. I think some of the worst stuff I did was when I did go back to combat, I took a lot of risky chances that normal people wouldn't have took. You know, you never get a Valor Award for the happiest day of your life. You get it for the worst day of your life. And I was getting praised for my reckless behavior. because I would stand up in a firefight and walk across the open field, and I would take care of the enemy, and then everybody would praise you for it. But in reality, I just didn't care. In reality, I had a stone heart, and I didn't care. I started imploding into myself with destructive behavior like that. I was all about taking care of the men, taking care of the soldiers. But when it came to myself, I didn't care. When I got back, I started hanging out with the wrong people, started hanging out with people that had destructive behaviors, started staying out late, started pulling myself away from my family. One of my most favorite things in the world is being a father. I'm gonna tell you, being a dad is the best thing I've ever done in my life. And I couldn't look at my kids. And I pushed them away. And I found the next mission, or I found the next job, or I found the next thing as an excuse because I couldn't look at them. I pushed my family away, my wife away. I had fallen into what typically everybody falls into, adultery. It broke my marriage. It destroyed it. And even though we fought back from it and we did the counseling, it was always looming there because I never addressed the actual problem, which was the combat and the fact that I was suffering from depression and suffering from PTSD. It was always, why can't you communicate more? Why not? But the destructive behavior, like you said, was, if you go to the root of it, was that initial experience and those follow-on experiences afterwards. I've had peers that have committed suicide that you completely think were completely fine, and then next thing you know it, you hear that they killed themselves. I've had soldiers underneath me that I would find in the room that have hung themselves or shot themselves. And you could ask yourself, what could I have done better? What could I have done? But back then the education just wasn't there. We couldn't understand, we couldn't wrap our mind around our problems, let alone what their problems were. And I fought with my own bouts with suicide. There were 2 incidences where I thought I was going to take my own life. And one was about the time I was 20 years and I was about to get out. That's a huge transition for somebody whose identity is the military. My marriage was on the rocks. My wife wanted a divorce. My kids weren't talking to me. And this is all self-induced on myself. And I thought that everyone in the world would be better off without me. And then I ran into someone very special to me. And she talked me off the ledge and told me about her stresses and her time with dealing with suicide and her time dealing with the pain of the military. And still to this day, we counsel each other on things. But had I not met that one person, I wouldn't have started seeking out help. And then this last time was when I actually started feeling forward progress. When I was sitting alone in my apartment and I had no one. I text everybody I knew and nobody texted me back. I tried to call people and nobody called. I took all the ammo out of my house because I didn't want to have that option, but I was already thinking. And it was actually you, Damon, who texted me back. And you were the first one to text me back and ask me how I was doing. And that's why when you offered this to me, we had talked about it before, years prior, but when you said that you had this down here, I knew that I needed to be here and that God was putting you in my way for a reason. I found God and started moving forward not just identifying my problems and knowing what they are, but I needed to move forward with healing. And coming here to SOF Missions and going through the resiliency program has really started that forward motion for me, that forward momentum that I've been starving for. And I feel a better man today, connected more to my family, connected more to my job, my environment. And I feel very at peace with myself because of this.
Wow, such a powerful and moving testimony. Honestly, it's through your support that we're able to meet the needs of so many veterans out there, just like Fish. Our goal at SOF Missions is to come alongside our veterans and take them from where they are and put them on a path to peak performance. For us, it's not enough for one of our warriors to wake up and say, well, I don't feel like, taking my life today. We want our men and women to be the best version of themselves. We want them to have a positive attitude, take the bull by the horns, take on the world, to understand that, that God has an incredible calling in their life and to actually fulfill it. And so for us, this is a really, really emotional and very personal journey that we take on with each and every warrior that comes to our program. So would you join us on this journey to building resilient warriors today by giving to our end of the year campaign? Check this out. This is really incredible. Right now, so excited to share this. We have a donor who has thrown out a $100,000 match. It means any donation given by December 31st will be matched up to $100,000. This means your gift will have double the impact on our veterans. And with your help, I know we can get there. Thank you to everyone who has supported to us over the past 10 years. Together, we have made an atomic impact. We've made an incredible difference, and we are so appreciative of each and every person. I wish you and your family a very Merry Christmas and an incredible Happy New Year. May God bless you. May God bless America, and Godspeed.